Alafia. I'm Philip John Nymark, the founder of the Ifa Foundations of North and Latin America. And I have spent the vast majority of the last 40 years of my working life in trying to find and understand and teach the original wisdom, empowerment, and beauty of the ancient African philosophy called Ifa. My first exposure to it was back in 1972 when I retired to Florida. But my exposure was not to Ifa, it was to Santeria, which had been the only real expression in this hemisphere of bits and pieces of that philosophy. Because while the original philosophy came in the Middle Passage, in the slave ships, it immediately was forced to include Christianity, the Fan, the Congo, other African cultures who used much different kinds of energy. Eventually added on French Spiritism, etc., and became this kind of a potpourri, this stew of philosophies. Well, I knew that while many of those individual philosophies may have worked to greater or lesser extents, that I also knew they could not be mixed. It is the same as accepting the concept that a jet plane flies, a dirigible flies, a balloon flies, a helicopter flies, and trying to mix the directions up while you're attempting to fly. If you're in a jet plane, by the way, and you suddenly are fascinated with the concept and believe that, hey, helicopters fly, I'm going to land it that way, you're going to crash. And in a sense, these philosophies, which included and adapted all of these things, because they were forced to, ended up in that position. Now, once in a while, of course, it would work, because one segment of that truth would coincide, and you would have results that really couldn't be explained, not by Western methodology or reason. And that's what fascinated me. I wanted to know how the concept of divination, the way that they did it, which sporadically was so precise, could occur. I mean, everybody's always wanted to know the future. I wanted to know it. You wanted to know it. Cultures wanted to know it. Religions wanted to know it. People turned to astrology. People turned to, shaman, reading the bones, reading the whatever, the entrails of animals, all in a search for being aware of what the future would bring and hopefully being prepared for it. So I wanted to know about that for sure. Second thing I wanted to know about was how did all these, add-ons come into place, and how, when you were studying and researching it, did you know when to peel off this piece and to save this piece? And it began a lifelong journey for me of restoring and understanding the foundational principles of this philosophy. To try and adapt an African philosophy to Western cultural values doesn't work. The instant gratification which dominates Western society was antithetical and the opposite of the foundational fathers of this beautiful religion. It was very much like perhaps trying to use a AK-47 to shoot down the mosquito in your room. Once in a while you would hit the mosquito, but a lot of times you would simply damage the wall or those people around you. So I want to know, what was that original understanding? What were the original principles? How could people like myself who teach and practice this philosophy today learn, utilize, and empower themselves through these original methods which were developed. They were developed over hundreds, if not thousands, of years of trial and error of research by the Yoruba culture. But they didn't have anything to do with our world in that sense. Two reasons, as you say, why were they so different? Two reasons I'll give you very quickly. One, good character was an accepted premise if you lived in Africa in the early days of the Yoruba founding of this philosophy. It wasn't something they hoped for, it was something they accepted. They raised their children to have good character, to act with good character. And so the information that they developed, or the information they were able to access, automatically assumed the individual would act with good character, including those people that he or she interacted with. Second, they understood the long term. There was no short-term gratification. Oh, certainly they wanted to be successful or in love or get healthy and all those things, but it was always in the picture, the long-term picture. If you asked a Yoruba child 1,000 years ago who had a severe strep throat how he was, the child would say, "I'm fine, my throat is sick." Because in their understanding of the eternal Ashe energy, spirit of every individual, they were always fine. If we wake up with a sore throat, we think we're really having a lousy week and we want it taken care of instantly. So the long term determined their actions. And what they found, of course, was that with the integration of good character into utilizing the information in relation to the long term, the short term was always much better as well. It's a fascinating process. Many people will be offended because it challenges their belief in the absolute word or the things they've been taught. But I promise you that to the best of my ability and my intellect and my love and care for this philosophy, that the work that the Ifa Foundation has done to restore the original wisdom of this philosophy can serve everybody, and perhaps more importantly can serve our world in a much more effective and profound manner. You sit watching this video in a world where almost every cataclysm or problem, in a world where right now the oil is pumping free into the Gulf of Mexico and possibly going to destroy ecosystems that have been here for tens of thousands of years and all the species associated with them. And all these things, the oil, the food, the global warming, the pollution, all of it is a result of this short-term thinking of our culture. So the understanding, the learning, the ability to act and implement and operate from the original Ifa Yoruba worldview is powerful, profound, and incredibly encouraging for yourself, those you love, the universe you're connected with. If you would like to see a series of videos starting from the beginning and peeling away the nonsense and reestablishing the reality of this lost wisdom of Ifa, please go to the ifafoundation.org to see the first in the series of restoring the lost wisdom of Ifa. Go to www.ifafoundation.org.